Hi again. In today's read aloud, you're going to hear that many immigrants who lived in big cities settled in ethnic neighborhoods with other immigrants from their home countries. We've learned about Ellis Island, which is in the New York Harbor, and this time your purpose for listening is going to be on the West Coast. And we're going to be looking at a place where immigrants came from this country across the Pacific Ocean to the United States. So remember, Charles and Oscar, many immigrants settled in the big cities of the United States. Listen carefully to find out what life was like for immigrants in a big city. And also listen carefully for the name of the immigration center on the West Coast. Marie awoke to the sound of a voice outside her window calling, "Buy my fresh fruit, good to eat, crunchy apples, red and gold, sweet cherries, strawberries, buy my fresh fruit, good to eat." Then, like the different colored yarns her grandmother knitted together to make a scarf, the sounds of the city began to weave together, one after another. First, Marie heard the clear ringing of the bells hanging around the necks of the goats that provided goat's milk to some of the neighbors' homes. Then she heard a creaking sound she knew belonged to Mr. Jacoby's wagon. He delivered cow's milk and cheese from his dairy across town. Now Mr. Diplis, a jolly Greek man, started calling, knife sharpener, axes, scissors, shovels, picks, blades, and handles, I can fix." Marie liked the grinning little man. He was built as solidly as a bull, and he walked the city streets pushing a cart that held his sharpening tools. Marie awakened her two younger sisters who shared the bed with her, then crossed the little room in 2 steps to wake her baby brother, who was still small enough to sleep in an open drawer of their old wooden dresser. "Everybody up," she said. Marie's day was just beginning, but Papa would have already left in the dark hours before dawn for his job at a mattress factory. Mama would have woken up with him to brew his coffee and cook his breakfast. As he started down the 7 flights of wooden stairs, she would have handed him his metal lunch pail with the sandwich she had made for him. "Our new home is not like our quiet little village in Italy," Marie thought for the 1000th time as she helped her youngest sister and her brother get dressed. "So many people here, so much noise. And Papa has to work so hard for so many hours every day in that smoky factory. Still," she thought, "at least Papa has a job. Back home there were no jobs, very little to eat, and the floors in our little house were made of dirt. Here in America there is plenty to eat, and we live in a good building. I wish there were not so many people crowded in with us, though. However, I like having so many friends, and I do enjoy the city, but sometimes I would like it to be quiet the way it was in our little village in Italy. But I'm very thankful to be here in America where there are so many opportunities." Marie's life was typical of the lives of millions of immigrants who came from Europe and Asia to the United States for better job opportunities in the 1800s and the early 1900s. The largest wave, or largest group of immigrants, 23 million people, came to the United States between 1880 and 1920. Immigrants from Europe entered through Ellis Island in New York Harbor, and many stayed near the harbor, living in or around New York City on the East Coast. Other immigrants moved away from New York to join friends or relatives who were already living farther north in Boston, south in Philadelphia, or west in the great cities of the Midwest, such as Chicago, Detroit, or Cleveland. Meanwhile, Chinese and other immigrants from Asia came to the West Coast of the United States through the city of San Francisco, passing through the Angel Island Immigration Center in San Francisco Bay. There were fewer Asian immigrants, so the immigration center at Angel Island was not as large as the immigration center on Ellis Island in New York Harbor. Still, there was a steady stream of immigrants, and these Chinese and other Asian immigrants settled in cities around the San Francisco Bay or moved inland away from the ocean. They would often stop in the mining camps of the California mountains in search of gold, joining other gold seekers from across the United States and from other nations around the world. After finding no gold, many Chinese went to find work building the railroads that would soon join the east and west coasts of the country. Although many immigrants settled in the countryside as farmers or villagers, most of them made their homes in the big cities of America. Many immigrants settled in these large cities because there were more jobs there. Earlier immigrants remembered the hardships and difficulties they had experienced settling in a new country and often helped the newcomers to find jobs. City immigrants worked in factories making everything from shirts and dresses to the buttons and buckles that closed them, from small wooden picture frames to huge wooden railroad cars, from loaves of bakery bread to huge ovens in which to do the baking. Some owned their own businesses, little shops and stores that sold produce to eat or goods from their home countries. Others sold items from carts or wagons, which they pushed themselves or had horses pull them. Wherever they came from and wherever they settled, the newcomers found other immigrants who had brought with them the customs, the foods, and the languages of their home countries. Many immigrants who lived in the cities gathered in ethnic neighborhoods with other immigrants from their native countries. People would say, "That's Little Italy over there," or "This neighborhood is called Chinatown." Germans, Poles, Italians, the Irish, African Americans, European Jews, Japanese, Norwegians, and many other groups had what they thought of as their parts of town. They felt at home there. So cafes and restaurants served their traditional foods made with old and familiar recipes. Crowded apartments were decorated with familiar items from home, and all around them they heard the languages from their homelands. By living close together, immigrants not only felt more at home, they were also able to support each other in finding jobs and learning English. Immigrants felt safer and more comfortable in these neighborhoods, but they would often have to travel outside their parts of town to work and live. Sometimes when they left their neighborhoods and met people from other places, they learned from one another and enjoyed it. Sometimes they met only unfriendliness or even hatred. Immigrants discovered that some people from outside their community could often be hostile toward them because they were different. Now, hostile means very unfriendly and unwelcoming. Some Americans believed that immigrants were coming into the country and taking their jobs. However difficult their new lives in America could be, the lives of many immigrants improved when they moved to and settled in the United States. The longer immigrant families lived in the United States, the less hostility they felt. Over time, children of immigrants felt even less hostility, as did their children's children, and in time they were accepted as Americans just like everyone else.